तव कथामृतम् तप्तजीवनम् कविभिरीडितम् कल्मषापहम् श्रवणमङ्गलम् श्रीमदाततम् भुवि गृह्णन्ति ये भूरिदा जनाः भुवि गृह्णन्ति ये भूरिदा जनाः।
ॐ तव कथामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं श्रवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि गृह्णन्ति ये भूरिदा जनाः। We are studying the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, and we are in the conversations relating to 22nd October 1882. And that is Vijayadashmi day, when the image will be immersed. Now, in the beginning, the conversation is about formless and with form. And then Master Mahasaya says, we have to think of the hands and feet. But I cannot concentrate on formless also. So Thakur says that you have to do some spiritual practice, even to understand spiritual things. And he says that the jnanis think of God without form, and he has shown the jnani's view by Krishna showing Arjuna that what appears as the cluster of berries is so many avatars hanging on the tree of the Nirguna. Then we get the Bahudaka and Kuti Chakas. Now, where we ended, there one side of visit to pilgrimages was told. And we have to learn something from that. Every utterance of Thakur is for our good. It just not so he tells that while we were with Mathur to Raja Babu's drawing room in Banaras, I found that they talked there only of worldly matters, money, real estate, and the like. At this I burst into tears. I said to the Divine Mother, weeping, Mother, where hast thou brought me? I was much better off at Dakshineshwar. In Allahabad, I have noticed the same things that I saw elsewhere, the same ponds, the same grass, the same trees, the same tamarind leaves. So what we learn from here? If we go to pilgrimage and see by superficial eyes, this is what we shall see. The place itself will not appear different if we see it by the physical or worldly eyes. Second point in this is that people like Mathur Babu, Raja Babu, those who deal with money, they get that money jaundice. And so even in a place of pilgrimage, they talk like that. And they, instead of getting benefit from that pilgrimage, are spoiling that very place of pilgrimage. So all these things we learn from Thakur telling the experience that Mathur Babu, Raja Babu, they used to talk of worldly things. So they do not get that benefit. They spoil the holiness of the place of pilgrimage. But that is not all. So one-sided should not remain the view of pilgrimage. It does not mean that pilgrimage has no value. If we go by the proper attitude, you will find spiritual inclinations growing. And that is the purpose of going to pilgrimage. That will, our spirituality will be awakened, gets a push up. That is the value of pilgrimage. So he is telling, but one undoubtedly finds inspiration in a holy place. Inspiration, Uddipan hoy. What is Uddipan? Uddipan means arousal of spiritual sanskaras. Uddipan means arousal of spiritual sanskaras. So that is what happens in place of pilgrimage. So we should understand this when we go to place of pilgrimage, that if we are in that mood, our spiritual impressions will be awakened. And he's citing his own example. I accompanied Mathur Babu to Vrindavan. Hriday and the ladies of Mathur's family were in our party. No sooner did I see the Kaliya Daman Ghat than a divine emotion surged up within me. I was completely overwhelmed. So, for those who do not know the Indian lore, for them I have to tell what is this Kaliya Daman Ghat. In times of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, in the Vrindavan or Mathura or wherever, on the banks of the Ganges was their pasture. But within a portion of the Yamuna, so within a portion of Yamuna lived a terribly poisonous snake called Kaliya. And because of that, people were afraid of going there. Because of that, the water in that section had become poisonous. And then, when boys, Krishna's friends went to play there, their ball or whatever that was fell somewhere near that Kaliya. So everybody was afraid. And Krishna jumped into that river. Then Kaliya came as if to bite him. Krishna jumped on the Kaliya had several hoods. And Krishna jumped on his hood and danced there on his hood. So much so that Kaliya got exhausted. Somebody dances on our head. So on Kaliya's hood, he danced for a long time. So Kaliya became like dead. And he and his wife, they appealed to Sri Krishna to leave him. He said, I will leave him only on one condition. He should go away from here. I will not kill him. But if he goes to the ocean and lives there, it will not be troublesome. People can easily avoid some portion of the ocean water. Secondly, ocean water being salty, people are not using for drinking it. So, if he promises me that he will go and live in ocean along with all his wives and everybody, then I will leave him. And in this way, Kaliya escaped Yamuna, never to return again. That is called Kaliya Daman. Daman means subjugating Kaliya. That was one of the special acts of bravery done by Sri Krishna in his childhood. So, for Thakur, that is a great association of Sri Krishna, of wicked people being subjugated by Sri Krishna, of the people living on the bank of Yamuna being freed from fear by Sri Krishna. So that is the association, and Thakur going anywhere with this proper mind would always get his spiritual feelings aroused. So in our case, as Thakur has said, spiritual sanskaras will get awakened. In Thakur's case, the spiritual feelings got awakened. So a divine emotion stirred up within me. I was completely overwhelmed. That means he's lost this personal I consciousness totally. That is the meaning of completely overwhelmed. Hridaya used to bathe me there as if I were a small child. So when this I, so and so, is lost, then one becomes child. Child means guileless, egoless fellow. Not that ignorant fellow, but egoless, guileless fellow. And such a fellow has to be helped by giving him a bath. And that is there, where he had danced on Kaliya, where Sri Krishna had danced on Kaliya and removed Kaliya. This person who is both Rama and Krishna, this person used to lose his this assumed identity totally. So that is the value of places of pilgrimage. One will lose one's externalized consciousness and the spiritual consciousness will be aroused. In the dusk, I would walk on the bank of the Yamuna. When the cattle returned along the sandy banks from their pastures. At the very sight of those cows, the thought of Krishna would flash in my mind. So the association works with the spiritual people. So Krishna used to bring those cows from the pastures. That memory, he says, as if he has seen that. So that thought used to arouse in his mind. The thought of Krishna would flash in my mind. I would run along like a madman, crying, "Oh, where is Krishna? Where is my Krishna? Where is Krishna? Where is my Krishna?" That means the Krishna whom I love. That becomes my Krishna. So, wanting to see, feeling that Krishna will be there along with the cows, by association, used to run along and cry like this. Another instance, I went to Shyamakunda and Radhakunda. Adjoining Vrindavan, there are two kundas, that is, tanks or lakes, and they are named after Bhagavan Sri Krishna and Radhika. Radhika is Krishna's spiritual consort, not his married wife, and himself is the spiritual consort of Radhika. And in there are stories how they are associated with Radha and Krishna, but that is why they have got their names. So I went to Shyamkunda and Radhakunda. In a palanquin and got out to visit the holy Mount Govardhan. Govardhan is a small holy mount within Vrindavan. Now, in Krishna's life, it has got a tremendous value. That is, Indra is the god of rains. And people used to worship Indra for their prosperity. Krishna stopped it and said we should worship Govardhan. So this modern idea that the nature is more important is shown by Sri Krishna. And the people followed him. And then Indra became angry. And he sent so much rain, being the god of rains, that people thought that the whole world will be deluged. But Krishna assured everybody and raised that Govardhan on a tip of his finger. And that became the umbrella for all. And all of those people gathered below it. And so the rains could not do anything to them. Then Indra came and bowed down, and all that stories are there. But that is the Govardhan Mount. Now, today, people go to Vrindavan, and as an association with those incidents, they do Govardhan Parikrama, walking around Govardhan. So, all these associations are there, and when Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna reached there, got out of the palanquin to visit the holy Mount Govardhan. At the very sight of the mount, I was overpowered with divine emotion and ran to the top. I lost all consciousness of the world around me. The residents of the place helped me to come down. On my way to the sacred pools of Shamkunda and Radhakunda, when I saw the meadows, the trees, the shrubs, the birds, and the deer, I was overcome with ecstasy. My clothes became very wet with tears. I said, "Oh Krishna, everything here is as it was in the olden days. You alone are absent." Seated inside the palanquin, I lost all power of speech. Hriday followed the palanquin. He had warned the bearers to be careful about me. So, spiritual emotions rising. So, even if we go with this attitude, we'll have our spiritual emotions risen. Then another important event took place there during Thakur's life, and that Thakur himself is narrating here. Ganga Mai became very fond of me in Vrindavan. There was a pure, holy lady named Ganga. People used to call her Ganga Mai, Ganga the mother, and she stayed there. She found Sri Ramakrishna to be nothing but Radhika. And Sri Ramakrishna found that Ganga Mai is one of the associates, close associates of Radhika, who is born in this age to teach bhakti to people. Finding thus each other as parts of a coronation incident, they became attracted to each other. And then Ganga Mai became very fond of me in Vrindavan. She was an old woman who lived all alone in a hut near the Nidhuvan. Nidhuvan is the place where in the night Sri Krishna used to play, dance, rejoice with Radha. And so that is a very holy place, prohibited place. They say that Sri Krishna, even now, every day, dances there, and we cannot see that. If one tries to see, one loses his eyes. That is the legend there today. Near that Nidhuvan, this Ganga Mai lived. Referring to my spiritual condition and ecstasy, she said, he is the very embodiment of Radha. She addressed me as Dulali, dear one. When with her, I used to forget my food and drink, my bath, and all thought of going home. So he would be in a different sphere. On some days, Hriday used to bring food from home and feed me. Gangamai also would serve me with food prepared by her own hands. Gangamai used to experience trances. At such times, a great crowd would come to see her. One day, in a state of ecstasy, she climbed on Hriday's shoulders. So he's telling about Gangamai. We can now remember Gangamai and go to Nidhuvan. I didn't want to leave her and return to Calcutta. So for Thakur, there is no attachment, or Thakur is the model of what Swami Vivekananda has said. One should have the full power of attachment and full power of detachment. So when he was in Vrindavan, we see that attachment yet to be shown, and it being a transcendent experience, it does have both the transcendent and immanent aspects. The aspects of whole world being pervaded by Krishna, and that is the holy place Vrindavan. I was to eat double boiled rice to make it soft, and we were to have our beds on either side of the cottage. So Lokavihar they did not forget, so cots on the opposite side of the cottage. All the arrangements had been made when Hriday said, you have such a weak stomach. Who will look after you? Why, said Gangamai, I shall look after him. I will nurse him. As Hriday dragged me by one hand and as she by the other, I remained. So all the holy associations we can feel. Why, said Gangamai, I shall look after him. I will nurse him. As Hriday dragged me by one hand and she by the other, I remembered my mother, who was then living alone here in the Nābat of this temple garden. Because he is talking there, so he says here. I found it impossible to stay away from her and said to Gangamai, no, I must go. I love the atmosphere of Vrindavan. So, here very important thing Thakur has shown, though Thakur is sannyasi, he has the highest value of women in the form of mother. And his own mother, he remains in that spiritual mode. But that is the duty of a householder to serve his mother at the end days. And that is what Sri Ramakrishna preferred. So no attachment, no detachment. About 11 o'clock, the master took his meal like we are in Dakshineshwar now, the offerings from the temple of Kali. After taking his noonday rest, he resumed his conversation with the devotees. Every now and then he uttered the holy word Om or repeated the sacred names of the denizens. That is what he used to do every evening. After sunset, the evening worship was performed in the temples. Since it was the day of Vijaya, the devotees first saluted the Divine Mother and then returned and then took the dust of the Master's feet. So that is the proper salutation. And at the end of everything, at the beginning of everything, people like to, that much spiritual act, to sustain their spiritual momentum, to sustain their spiritual effort to go beyond it through this sadhana says that is the value of going to pilgrimage. So pilgrimage has a definite holy and mundane sanskaras there, and that is why Sri Ramakrishna has described all this. Now we enter the conversation. Chapter is same, fourth chapter. Tuesday, October 24, 1882. Tuesday. It was 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The master was standing near the shelf where the food was kept. Well, when Balaram and M arrived from Calcutta and saluted him, Sri Ramakrishna, when Balaram and M arrived from Calcutta and saluted him, Sri Ramakrishna said to them with a smile, I was going to take some sweets from the shelf, but no sooner did I put my hand on them than a lizard dropped on my body. At once, I removed my hand. So this is the Indian superstition representing the class is going on. Class is going on. So this is a superstition that lizard, if it drops or makes some sound, or it is inauspicious. Other than the fact that lizard is somewhat poisonous. So he is telling lizard dropped on my body. At once I removed my hand. I was going to take some sweets from the shelf. No sooner did I put my hand on them than the lizard dropped on my body. At once I removed my hand. That means he would not eat because that is inauspicious because of lizard fell. Oh yes, he is explaining. One should observe all these things. These are not purely superstitions. There are, mind you, subtler forces in this world. And those subtler forces do influence our life positively or negatively. And so, those who know them must observe them. Those who do not know them should also try to know them. So he says one should observe all these things. You see, Rakhal is ill and my limbs ache also. Do you know what's the matter? This morning as I was leaving my bed, I saw a certain person whom I took for Rakhal. So, seeing the proper persons in the early morning is another good trait. If you see some improper person with bad sanskara, that may affect your day or laugh. People thought that he is making too much of a small thing. Oh yes, physical features should be studied. This is another subtler science which Thakur knew perfectly well. And it is in connection with some person whom he saw. The other day, Narendra brought one of his friends, a man with only one good eye, though the other eye was not totally blind. I said to myself, what is this trouble that Narendra has brought with him? A person with one eye is inauspicious. Here Thakur said the other eye had some sight, but even then I thought like that. A certain person comes here, but I can't eat any food that he brings. So that is the great theory about food in India. Ramanuja Sent has described that there are three types of faults in food. Let us go back. In the Chandogya Upanishad, after Sanat Kumar teaches Narad, it is concluded there by telling that this what is this trouble that Narendra has brought with him? We are talking of food. So the Chandogya Upanishad says that Ahara Shuddhau Sattva Shuddhi Sattva Shuddhau Dhruva Smriti Smriti Sthairya Sarvagrinti Nam Vipramoksha. That is, literally, ahar means anything we take in. So in a gross way, it means food. And ahar being pure, that means there is some thing called impure ahar. And that is very much in the old, I would say, Indian culture. They know it very well. Now, what are the three defects? One is called Jati Dosha. By nature, some food is not proper. Why? Because it may have an excessive tamagun in that food. And if we take that, our tamagun, anti-spiritual dosha will increase. Now, that is called the nature of the food. Let me comment something more here, that in those categories, it is described that food having very strong smell should be avoided. And as an example, it has been mentioned there, garlic, onion, and food of that type. Of that type, but they have not named more substances. So Swami Vivekananda said, man cannot live without food of this type, at least little. So what he did was invented or found out, discovered what we call asafoetida or hing. And hing is much stronger smelling than garlic. But it is not mentioned in the list. The rule is mentioned that strong smelling food should not be taken. It is full of tamas sanskara. But for example, onion, garlic. So, to avoid given in that list, but to include something which man can't live without, that is food with stinking smell. So they are invited hing, asafotridia, that is what Swamiji has said. Now that is jati dosha. And the other is nimitta dosha. That is in the, say, last 20 years, the world has very much changed. In India at least, the sweet smelling, sweet selling sweet shops selling sweets, the sweets should be open and flies and so many things would be hovering around. People walking, the dust would also fall. And we took those sweets without any consideration. But if something wrong has fallen there, you must avoid that, says Ramanuj. So, Ahara Shuddhi, second point is Nimitta Dosh. Third point is Ashraya Dosh. From whom the food has come to you. If the person from whom the food has come to you has bad sanskaras, you will be affected by the bad sanskaras. Now, this is the point on which so many things are to be thought of and said. We know in India, caste comes in when we think of sharing food. So the Orthodox people, they will not touch food touched by the lower caste people. Now the upper caste, lower caste are supposed to have different sanskaras, and therefore food coming from association with lower caste should not be tolerated by a man of upper caste. But this theory became very much distorted when the caste became rigid by birth. Castes were never by birth in the beginning. Caste depended upon the qualities of that man, and that is why this association of food was prohibited. But later on, the caste became rigid, and even then, the same tradition of not taking food from here or there remained. So much so that Swami Vivekananda has said, all our religion, that is Indian religion, has gone into the kitchen. And don't touch me, don't eat my food, that became more prevalent. Now, another point here is that saliva is the supreme conducer carrying sanskaras of food to the other person. Now, this in India is so meticulously followed that even if I am using a spoon and now food is served by some spoon. Now what I am telling is what I observed in Punjab. In Punjab and Sindh, the least consideration of this touch of food is maintained. Maximum in Tamil Nadu. So when we travel from the south to the north, we see gradual slackness in this matter of food touch. So Punjabis, if they serve you a roti and you do not want it, they would simply lift it and put in the other's plate. For the other state people, it would be a horrible sin. And this hand, that hand, left hand being used, all this trouble. When I explained it to some devotees, they were shocked. They were taken aback and said, all these years you have allowed us to do like that. We did not know that. And then they said, probably because we have always faced wars in Punjab, we had no time to consider this, whatever may be the thing. Another incident I will tell. I was invited between Chandigarh and Shimla. There is one place where the military has a school, and the principal of that school was a lady from Tamil Nadu, and she invited me for lunch. And so that some gentry should be there, she invited the principal of that military school, she invited some big people of that town. And there was a Sikh gentleman in that. And the Sikh gentleman, you see, misunderstanding. The Sikh gentleman was stealing outside cleanliness, nothing to do with the sanskara. That he is telling that how you people take food by hands. We take food only by spoon. The madam explained, we wash our hands before we sit for food. We wash our hands immediately after taking food. So, taking food by hands is not bad at all. He poo-pooed, he did not understand that idea. And then, when he was eating some roti, he lifted by his left hand. And in that, by his spoon, he placed a piece of vegetable and then he ate that. I said, sir, you are touching your hand. Oh, that is nothing, that is nothing. How that is nothing? How that is nothing? So, a little touch, not little, you are lifting that roti by one hand, so that is nothing. I am talking about the modern nonsense attitudes. That is nothing. And if we wash our hands and eat food, does not have more meaning. So, this is the thing that you must keep. Swami Vivekananda has described it. He says in the West, if you go to a hotel, he will spit on that plate and shine it with a cloth and keep your food in that. In India, his dress may be dirty, he would take a bath, he would take a clean plate and give before you. On the other hand, Indians, they will use this plantain tree leaves as plates. And they feel cow dung is very pure. So the houses are mud houses and they will smear it with cow dung. Then it becomes holy. And on that, the leaf is kept. And there is no cup separate, bowl or cup. So in that, they will take all the liquids. Some of it will flow out. So Swamiji has in a humorous way described how the traditions are kept. But there is a great value in that. And so we should find out both internal and external cleanliness, especially about this saliva business. So it came here. Now, let me mention one more thing. Because that Chandogya Upanishad tells, if the intake is pure, then your mind becomes pure. And if your mind is pure, your memory becomes constant of God. And if the memory is constant of God, all your knots of the heart are cut asunder. Now, the great Shankaracharya has commented on the same sutra, and I use the word intake. He says intake is not food. Intake is not only food. Intake is what you take by all your organs. You see, touch, hear, smell, all that is intake. And if intake is freed from three defects, attachment, aversion, and this type, this anger, hatred, etc., while taking food, then your mind becomes pure. So, I explained to you both the views, and Swami Vivekananda has reconciled, telling that in the beginning, this is very necessary, the physical observances preached by Ramanuj, and as you grow spiritually, you may not pay so much attention on that. Then what Shankara has said is more important. So, we thought of all these things because where we were and how we shifted to it. Something was there. I found it impossible to stay away from her and said to Gangamai, though I must go out the atmosphere of Vrindavan. About 11 o'clock, the master took his meal, the offerings from the temple of Kali. After taking his noonday rest, he resumed his conversation. How I shifted to this food? Hmm? Oh, we have completed that. A certain person comes here, but I can't eat any food that he brings. A certain person comes here, but I can't eat any food that he brings. Now, Sri Ramakrishna's body had become an automatic meter. So, if any impurity in any man, he would discover immediately, and he would not take food touched by him. That is what we thought. So, that is at the origin of the theory. Then it deteriorated into caste and all these considerations. He works in an office at a salary of 20 rupees and earns another 20 by writing false bills. So that's why a character of the person is carried by the food it touches. That is the at the behind all these theories of caste and all that. So Sri Ramakrishna is clearly telling that he, by writing false bills, he 20 rupees was too much in those days, salary. And double that amount or the same amount he earns by wrong means. I can't utter a word in his presence because he tells lies. Sometimes he stays here 2 or 3 days without going to his office. Can you guess his purpose? It is that I should recommend him to someone for a job somewhere else. So the mental attitudes of every person is judged by Sri Ramakrishna. Though he won't open it out, but when it is necessary, he is describing this. This is what we are thinking. Balaram comes from a family of devout Vaishnavas. His father, now an old man, is a pious devotee. He has a tuft of hair on his head, a rosary of tulsi beads around his neck, and a string of beads in his hand. He devotes his time to the repetition of God's name. He owns much property in Orissa and has built temples to Radhakrishna in Kothar, Vrindavan, and other places, establishing free guest houses as well. So, he he shifts to Balram. So all these things in relation to the spiritual life and praising Balram's father. To Balram, a certain person came here the other day. I understand he is the slave of that black hag of a wife. Why is it that people do not see God? It is because of the barrier of woman and gold. How impudent he was to say to you the other day, a Paramahansa came to my father who fed him with chicken curry. So, what is the problem here? Started from Hago El Sab Mante Hai. बलराम नूतन आशिते चेन ठाकुर गल्प चले ताके नाना उपदेश दीते चेन. This line is not there. Balram has started coming newly, so Thakur is giving him lot of advices. In that he has praised Balram's father, and then that is some joke perhaps, huh? वो কথাটা বললে তোমার সম্মুখে কি করে সেদিন ও কথাটা বললে যে আমার বাবার কাছে একজন পরমহংস. ও it is not about Thakur, huh? Some Paramahansa had come, and he is making a joke there, huh? আর বাবা তাকে কুকড়ো রেঁধে খাওয়াইলেন. Some joke, huh? At the cost of Paramahansa. Balaram laughs at that. So, this talk is unholy that Thakur is telling him. In my present state of mind, I can eat a little fish soup if it has been offered to the Divine Mother beforehand. I can't eat any meat, even if it is offered to the Divine Mother, but I taste it with the end of my finger, lest she should be angry. Now, about this food, better to postpone it, huh? Because about food only we are talking about touch and all that. Now, other is that Jati Dosh. And some people, I think best I will discuss this tomorrow. So we stop here about, anyway, from this para, we will take it up again with a fresh mind. Om Tava Kathāmritam Tapta Jivanam Kavivirīditam Kalmashāpaham Shravanamangalam Shrimādātitam Bhuvi Grunanti Ye Bhurida Jana. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.